When I saw my own face staring back at me across the street, smiling at my fiancé, I forgot how to breathe. That's how the nightmare began, not with thunder or sirens, but with quiet disbelief on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I'd left work early to surprise Adam with takeout from the Thai place we both loved. The air smelled of rain and fried basil. The paper bag in my hand was warm, the sauce starting to leak through. I remember thinking how much he'd laugh at that. He always teased me for forgetting napkins. Then I saw her. Same hair length. Same freckles beneath the left eye. Even the same cream blazer I'd worn last Friday. She stood by the cafe, leaning in close to Adam, my Adam, laughing softly like she knew every corner of his heart. At first, I thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I was looking at a reflection in a window. Maybe fatigue was playing tricks on me. But then she touched his arm, that gentle, familiar gesture I'd used when we crossed streets together. And that's when the truth sank in. My twin sister, Emily, was living my life. You might imagine I ran up, screamed, demanded answers. But I froze. My body simply refused to move. The drizzle started thin and cold, blurring their outlines like a bad dream. I stood there until they walked away, hand in hand, disappearing into the gray afternoon. I walked home in silence, every footstep echoing against the hollow inside my chest. My hands were trembling when I unlocked my apartment door. Inside, everything was just as I'd left it that morning. The mug half full of coffee, the blue scarf tossed over the chair, the framed photo of Emily and me at our 25th birthday, grinning like mirrors. How do you explain to yourself that your mirror has betrayed you? Before everything went wrong, Emily and I had been inseparable. Growing up, our mother used to joke that God ran out of imagination and printed the same soul twice. We shared clothes, secrets, even the same sense of humor that made our father groan during family dinners. But life has a way of widening even the smallest cracks. I went to university on a scholarship, studied communications, and landed a job at a small marketing firm downtown. Emily drifted. She tried nursing, photography, then hospitality, always chasing something, always quitting before she arrived. I was the steady one, the one people relied on. She was the spark that never lasted. Still, I loved her fiercely. When she called crying after losing another job, I let her crash on my couch, just for a week. When she stayed 2 months, I smiled and told her to take her time. Maybe that's where the story really began, not at the cafe, but in my living room. The night I said, "Stay as long as you need." Back then, life felt warm and predictable. Adam and I were engaged, saving for a fall wedding. My firm had just promoted me to account lead. My boss, Claire, said I had a natural instinct for trust. I laughed at that. Trust was easy for me until it wasn't. Emily was quieter than usual that week. She borrowed my clothes more often, asked about my job, my passwords for streaming services, even joked about trading places for a day. We'd done that once in high school, switched seats during roll call, giggling like fools. But this time her tone carried something sharper, something almost curious. I brushed it off. After all, she was my sister, my twin. One morning, I woke to find her making pancakes, humming the tune from my wedding playlist. She tied her hair the same way I did for work. "Borrowed your blouse," she said, flipping a pancake. "Hope that's okay." "It's fine," I replied, still half asleep. She smiled over her shoulder. "You really don't mind me being you for a bit, huh?" I laughed, a small, innocent sound that would haunt me later. The day I saw her with Adam, I didn't confront her immediately. I needed to understand. I told myself there had to be some explanation. Maybe she'd met him by accident. Maybe they were planning something for my birthday. But deep down, I knew. My stomach had already accepted the truth my mind refused to say out loud. That night, Emily texted me, "Going to stay with a friend for a few days. Need some space." I stared at the message for an hour, rereading every word. The next morning, she was gone, and so was my spare key. Over the next few days, little things began to shift. Claire called, asking why I'd missed a client meeting I'd personally scheduled. My bank app showed small withdrawals, $50 here, $80 there, from places I hadn't been. Adam didn't answer my calls. When he finally did, his voice sounded tired. Maybe we should take a break, he said. My throat tightened. A break? What's happening, Adam? I don't know who you are anymore. I almost laughed at the irony. That weekend, I went to Mom's house for some comfort. She greeted me with a confused frown. Sweetheart, weren't you just here? My breath caught. What do you mean? You dropped by yesterday, she said, wiping her hands on a towel. Brought me those lilies you hate. Said you'd gotten a new car. My heart slammed against my ribs. Mom, that wasn't me. Her face drained of color. Oh God, then who? I didn't let her finish. I was already out the door, fumbling for my phone, calling Adam again. This time, he didn't answer. But I didn't need him to. I finally understood. Emily wasn't pretending for fun anymore. She was being me. I sat in my car for a long time that night, watching the city lights smear across the windshield. Part of me wanted to scream, to drive straight to wherever she was and drag her back into the truth. But another part, the smaller, quieter part, just wanted to understand why. Was I such an easy life to steal? I didn't sleep that night. The air in my apartment felt wrong, too still, too clean, like someone had erased the noise that used to live there. I sat by the window with a cup of cold coffee and stared at the streetlights below, trying to piece together the timeline. Emily had my spare key. She'd been asking about my work, my passwords, my routines. She knew when I left, when I got home, when Adam called. She knew everything. Still, part of me clung to denial, that fragile human instinct that says, maybe you're overreacting. The next morning, I went to work. Claire met me by the elevator, her smile tight and forced. Feeling better today? She asked. Better. I frowned. Was I sick? She blinked. You called in yesterday. Said you had the flu. Sounded awful. I felt a slow, sinking cold spread through my chest. I didn't call. Her smile faltered. You didn't. She looked at me for a long, puzzled moment, then forced a polite laugh. Well, that's strange. Must have been a mix-up. But it wasn't. I knew that voice. She'd heard the tone, the rhythm. Emily could mimic me perfectly. She used to do impressions of me when we were teenagers, teasing me in front of friends. We'd laugh back then. Now, the memory felt poisonous. That afternoon, Claire called me into her office. She gestured for me to sit. The blinds were half closed, cutting thin lines of light across her desk. Listen, she began gently, I want to be clear. I value your work. You've been one of our most dependable leads. But this client incident, it can't happen again. I blinked. What incident? She frowned. The presentation. You told them off. Said they didn't respect your creative direction. They called me furious. I never, she raised a hand. It's fine. Just don't let stress get the better of you. My mouth went dry. Emily hadn't just pretended to be me socially, she'd been me professionally. I walked out of that office in a daze. My reflection in the hallway mirror looked unfamiliar, like someone trying too hard to be calm. That evening, I went through my emails, my calendar, everything. Several appointments had moved. Clients I hadn't spoken to in weeks suddenly had follow-up notes sent in my name. The emails were almost identical to how I wrote, same phrasing, same punctuation quirks, except for one thing. Emily had always used double spaces after periods. It was her tiny, unintentional signature. And it was everywhere. I tried calling her, no answer. I texted, pleaded, begged, Emily, please. I just want to talk. Hours later, a reply came. Don't be dramatic. You're fine. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. That phrase, don't be dramatic, was one she'd used since childhood whenever she was caught lying. That's when something inside me shifted. The shock began to burn into anger, quiet, focused anger. The next day, I went to Adam's apartment. I still had a key. His car was parked outside, the same navy sedan we'd chosen together last spring. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and my perfume, my exact brand, down to the faint jasmine note. I froze at the doorway, and then I heard her voice, Emily, laughing softly in the kitchen. A second voice, Adam's, warm, relaxed, hers. I don't remember walking in or even breathing. I just remember the look on their faces, twin panic, two ghosts caught in the same lie. Emily stood beside him in one of my old sweaters. Adam's hand was halfway to hers. No words came out of me at first. Just silence, thick, unbearable. Adam was the first to speak. "Claire," he began, using my name. I raised a hand. "Don't." Emily took a step forward. "Please, just let me explain. My voice cracked. "Explain why you're standing in my home with my fiancé, wearing my clothes?" Her lips trembled. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," I snapped. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like betrayal." Adam opened his mouth, but I couldn't bear to hear whatever excuse was forming. My pulse was roaring in my ears. I left before either of them could speak again. Outside, the wind felt sharp, cutting through the fabric of my coat. I remember walking aimlessly for an hour, maybe two, until my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "You've always had everything." I just wanted to feel what it's like to be you. I stopped in the middle of the street. For a moment, I actually pitied her. Then I realized she didn't mean it as an apology. I stayed with my friend Tessa that night. She made tea, handed me a blanket, and said nothing for a long time. Sometimes silence is the only kindness that fits. Later, she asked quietly, "Do you want to press charges?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to know how deep this goes." Because this wasn't just emotional, it was financial. My savings, my job, my identity. Emily hadn't just borrowed my life, she'd built a new one out of it. I started digging. Every account, every password, every record. I discovered she'd rerouted my paycheck to another bank, opened under my name, but with her photo. She'd used my driver's license, my social security number, everything. It was like staring at a version of myself that had no conscience. Tessa said, "You need to go to the police." "I will," I whispered. But not yet, because I wasn't ready to let the world see how easily I'd been replaced. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror for a long time. My reflection looked tired, eyes red from crying. I tried to imagine what she saw when she looked at the same face, envy, resentment, or maybe just emptiness. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. The next morning, I called the bank. After waiting through 10 minutes of soft jazz and automated voices, a woman named Denise answered. "Can I help you today?" "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I think my account's been compromised." "Compromised how?" I took a deep breath. "Someone's using my name. My sister. My twin sister." There was a pause on the other end. "Your twin sister?" "Yes," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "She's pretending to be me." I gave her every detail I could, transactions I hadn't made, changes I hadn't authorized. Denise was patient, kind even, but her words made my stomach twist. "According to our records, ma'am, the person we've been speaking with recently verified your identity with a driver's license, matching photo, and signature." "My photo?" "Yes," she said gently. "We even have your recent address update." I gripped the phone tighter. "What address?" She hesitated. "A condo on Lakeview Avenue." That was Adam's address. My throat went dry. "Thank you," I managed to whisper before hanging up. I drove there. I don't even remember grabbing my keys, just the cold air biting against my face as I walked up to the sleek glass building. My heart hammered like it was trying to escape my chest. I buzzed his apartment. No answer. Then, from behind me, a familiar voice said softly, "You shouldn't be here." I turned, and there she was. Emily. My face, my body, my tone. But something in her eyes was wrong, like the color had drained out of her soul. "You need to stop this," I said, my voice trembling. She smiled faintly. "Stop what?" "Living." "Stealing," I said sharply. "My job, my money, my fiancé." She cut me off. Stepping closer. "You never noticed how people looked at you, did you? Always the golden one. Always perfect, Claire. Mom's favorite. Adam's dream. I was just your reflection, not a person." I stared at her, my nails digging into my palms. "You were my sister." "Exactly," she whispered. "You had everything. I just borrowed it." "Borrowed?" I laughed bitterly. "You destroyed everything." Her expression shifted. Something like regret flickered across her face, but only for a moment. "You'll thank me one day. You needed to start over anyway." And then she walked past me like a stranger, disappearing into the building. I stood there for a long time, shaking. The glass doors reflected both of us for a second, her walking away, me standing still. Two identical outlines, one fading, one breaking. That night, I filed a police report. The officer listened carefully, typing notes, his brow furrowed when I said twin sister. It's complicated, I admitted. He nodded. Identity theft always is. When I showed him a photo of us together, he actually looked startled. You're sure you're the victim? I managed a bitter smile. Pretty sure. He promised to investigate, but his eyes said what I already knew, it would take time. Time I didn't have. Days turned into weeks. At work, whispers followed me. My clients were confused. Some avoided me altogether. Someone, Emily, had emailed them again, apologizing for emotional instability and requesting a transfer of accounts. Claire called me into her office once more. Claire, she said carefully, I don't know what's going on, but until this clears up, I have to put you on leave. Leave? I asked, stunned. Paid leave for now. But if the firm's reputation, I understand. Except I didn't. I left the building feeling hollow, clutching the cardboard box of my desk belongings like a funeral bouquet. Meanwhile, Adam blocked me. Every text went unanswered, every call declined. When I tried visiting, the concierge told me Miss Claire had already been by earlier that day. That's when it hit me she had won. She had my name, my voice, my world. And I had nothing. One night, I drove to Mom's again. She opened the door with tearful eyes. Oh, honey, she whispered, pulling me into her arms. I don't know what's happening. She came here last week, said you were traveling for work. I pulled back slightly. Did you believe her? I didn't know what to believe, she said, voice trembling. She even showed me your phone number. Said she changed it because of harassment. I closed my eyes. Mom, I know, she cut me off softly. I know it wasn't you. I could tell. Her laugh was different. I broke then. Right there on the old floral couch, I sobbed like I hadn't since I was a child. Mom held me and whispered the same thing over and over. We'll fix this. The next morning, Mom handed me an envelope that had arrived 2 days earlier addressed to Claire Harper, no return address. Inside was a photo. Emily and Adam. On a boat. Smiling. Behind it, a note. Don't look for me. I'm happy now. Me too. The handwriting was mine, or at least, close enough. That was the moment the betrayal became real. Not just something happening to me, but something that had changed me. I didn't feel anger anymore, just numbness. Like grief without a funeral. That night, I sat on my bed surrounded by papers, statements, police copies, her messages. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger wearing exhaustion skin. And in that silence, one thought kept echoing. If she can be me, then who am I now? I started writing things down, details she couldn't copy. The smell of rain before I left for work. The way Adam used to hold my left hand. Not my right. The nickname Mom called me when I had nightmares, June bug. Those were mine. Untouchable. It sounds small, I know. But when your identity's stolen, you rebuild yourself from the crumbs no one noticed. A week later, the detective called. We found her, he said. My heart skipped. Where? Airport security. She tried to board a flight using your passport. He hesitated. Do you want to press charges? I didn't answer right away. The thought of seeing her behind bars twisted my stomach. Can I talk to her? I finally asked. He sighed. You can, but she might not want to. I went anyway. In the small holding room, Emily sat across from me in a gray hoodie, wrists resting on the table. She looked tired, not guilty, not angry, just tired. Her eyes met mine. So this is how it ends? I swallowed. You tell me. She tilted her head. You always had everything. I just wanted to feel seen. You could have asked, I whispered. I did, she said, tears glistening now. You just didn't hear me. I didn't know what to say, because part of me wondered if she was right. When they led her away, I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when the officer thanked me for cooperating. It wasn't until I got back into my car that I finally broke, quietly, not loudly. Tears slipping down my face as rain tapped against the windshield. I wasn't mourning her arrest. I was mourning the sister I thought I had. The next few weeks passed in a blur: court forms, statements, meetings with detectives, and endless explanations to people who looked at me like they weren't sure if they should believe me. Identity theft is supposed to be a bureaucratic problem, but when it's done by your own sister, it becomes something else entirely: an emotional crime. You don't just lose your money or your job, you lose the story of yourself. Mom tried to keep me grounded. She'd make soup, bring over laundry, fuss over my empty fridge. But there were nights when I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and walk through the apartment like a ghost, touching everything just to make sure it was real. The toothbrush in the cup, the faint smell of my perfume, the indentation on the couch where I used to sit reading late at night. All of it mine, and yet I felt like I was trespassing in my own life. The company HR called a week later. They'd reviewed the situation, confirmed the identity fraud, and offered me a position back on probationary terms. Claire, my boss, called personally. Her tone was warmer now, cautious, but genuine. "I can't imagine what this has been like," she said. "We're just glad you're okay." "Thank you," I replied softly. "I'm trying to be." When I returned to the office, I could feel the air shift. People smiled politely, asked how I was doing, but behind every look was quiet curiosity, the kind that asks, "Is that the real Claire?" I didn't blame them. If I were them, I might have wondered the same. At lunch, I sat alone in the small break room, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Emily's face appeared again and again beside mine: vacations, birthdays, family dinners. In every one, we looked inseparable. Identical smiles, identical joy. It hit me that she'd studied those very expressions: the small tilt of my head when I laughed, the way I held my coffee mug. She'd memorized me like an actor preparing for a role. And I realized I wasn't angry that she fooled others. I was angry that she'd fooled me. That night, I went to Adam's apartment. For closure, not confrontation. He opened the door after a long pause, his face pale and thin. "Claire," he said quietly. "Hi." My voice felt smaller than I wanted it to. We stood there for a long moment. The hallway light flickered softly above us. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear I thought she was you." I nodded. "She's good at pretending." He rubbed his forehead. The first few days, I noticed little things. She didn't like the same food. She laughed differently. But when I asked, she said stress changed her. I believed her. "Because you wanted to," I said gently. He flinched. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd once planned our wedding. The silence between us was heavy, filled with all the words that didn't matter anymore. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "If I'd known sooner, you didn't," I interrupted. "And that's enough." He looked at me then, eyes wet. "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about it. Not just him, but everything: the confusion, the loss, the exhaustion. "I don't know," I said truthfully. "But I can let go." And I did. I stood, smiled faintly, and walked away before the past could reach for me again. When the court hearing came, I sat in the front row beside my lawyer. Emily entered in handcuffs, her hair tied back, her face pale. She looked younger somehow, or maybe just smaller. She didn't meet my eyes. The prosecutor read out the charges: fraud, identity theft, forgery. Each word felt like a nail sealing a coffin. But I couldn't hate her. I'd loved her too long for that. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement, I stood. My voice trembled, but stayed clear. "My sister didn't just steal my name," I said. "She stole my reflection. But I don't want her destroyed. I want her to find herself, whoever that really is." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge paused. When it was over, Emily turned slightly, her lips moving in a whisper I could barely hear. "Thank you." Then they led her away. Afterward, outside the courthouse, a reporter tried to interview me. "How does it feel to have your twin betray you?" she asked. I looked into her camera and said quietly, "It feels like losing your shadow." That clip went viral for a few days. Strangers online debated whether I was naive or noble. They didn't understand that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's survival. In the weeks that followed, I started therapy. My therapist, a calm woman with kind eyes, asked me something that changed everything. "Have you forgiven her?" I hesitated. "I think so." Then have you forgiven yourself? I blinked. For what? For not seeing it sooner. For trusting. For being human. I didn't answer right away. But that night, those words followed me home like a melody. One evening, I drove out to the old lake where Emily and I used to fish with Dad. The water was still, golden under the sunset. I sat on the dock and let my feet dangle just above the surface. In the reflection, I saw both of us, not identical anymore, but sisters divided by consequence. I forgive you, I whispered into the wind. But I'm learning to forgive me too. The ripples spread gently across the water, carrying my words away. A month later, I got a letter from the correctional facility. It was from Emily. Claire, I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know I finally looked in the mirror today and didn't see you. I saw me. I don't know who she is yet, but I'm going to find out. Thank you for setting me free even when you had every reason not to. I cried reading it. Not because it healed everything, it didn't, but because it meant she was finally facing herself. People think forgiveness is a gift you give the person who hurt you. But really, it's the way you stop bleeding from a wound they left behind. Emily had taken so much, my job, my love, my identity, but she'd also left me with something unexpected, clarity. I knew who I was now. Not because I'd been copied, but because I'd survived it. That night, I turned off my phone, sat in silence, and whispered to myself, I'm still here. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. When the story broke publicly, it felt like my private wounds had been turned into headlines. Twin identity theft scandal, one article read. Another called it, the sister who stole a life. I didn't want fame, not even sympathy, but curiosity has a way of spreading faster than truth. Strangers recognized me in grocery stores. Some whispered, others offered kind words. A few even asked for selfies, as if pain had turned me into some strange celebrity. At first, I wanted to hide, to move somewhere new, change my name, disappear into quiet anonymity. But then I realized that's exactly what Emily had done to me. And I wouldn't let her steal that too. I went back to work full-time a month after the trial. Claire welcomed me with a long hug. You don't have to rush, she said. But I needed to. Routine was my way back to normal. In the first team meeting, people were nervous, like I might break. I thanked them for standing by me, even when things didn't make sense. Then I said something I hadn't planned. If any of you ever feel unseen, speak up. Don't let silence turn into resentment. After the meeting, a few colleagues came up quietly, saying they admired my strength. Their kindness reminded me that not everyone takes advantage of vulnerability. Some people honor it. Meanwhile, Mom visited Emily once a week. She'd call afterward, voice soft and hopeful. She's doing better, she'd say. Reading books again. Drawing. That made me smile. Emily used to sketch flowers as a child, daisies mostly, because she said they looked like laughter. One day, Mom brought me a folded paper. She wanted you to have this. Inside was a pencil drawing, 2 daisies growing from the same stem. Underneath, she'd written, "One will always reach the sun for both." I didn't cry. Not then. But that night, I placed it on my bedside table like a prayer. A few months later, Adam called. I heard about Emily's parole hearing, he said. His voice was hesitant, older somehow. Yeah, it's next week. Are you going? I don't know, I said truthfully. I don't know what I'd say. He paused. You don't have to say anything. Sometimes just showing up is enough. Like you did for her? I asked quietly. He exhaled. I didn't know who I was showing up for back then. There was no bitterness in my tone, just truth. We said our goodbyes, not as enemies, but as two people who'd survived the same storm from opposite sides. At therapy, my counselor asked how I felt about Emily's release. I think I'm ready, I said. Ready for what? To meet her again, not as my twin, but as a person. She smiled. That's growth. I smiled faintly. That's closure. When the hearing day came, I wore a simple blue dress, the same one from our last family photo together before all this began. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. Emily entered in plain clothes this time, her hair shorter, her posture straighter. When the judge announced her conditional release, Emily turned to find me in the crowd. Her lips parted slightly, eyes brimming with tears. Afterward, outside the courthouse, she walked up slowly. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "I almost didn't." She nodded. "Thank you for everything." There were no grand speeches, no tearful hugs. Just quiet understanding, the kind that exists when two souls finally stop pretending they're enemies. Over time, life began to rebuild itself in small, steady ways. I moved to a new apartment near the river, not to escape my past, but to make peace with it. Mornings smelled like coffee and wet pavement. Evenings hummed with soft city sounds, the kind of life noise that feels healing. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the window and think of her, the girl who looked like me but wasn't. And I'd whisper, "We both made it." The community that once gossiped about me slowly turned into a circle of quiet respect. Local women invited me to speak at a seminar about digital safety and self-trust. I didn't want to at first. The idea of retelling my pain felt exhausting. But standing there that day, looking at dozens of faces filled with empathy, I realized something. Stories don't lose their power when shared, they multiply it. So I told them everything. Not the sensational version from the papers, but the quiet truth, the loneliness, the disbelief, the courage it takes to keep breathing when your own identity betrays you. Afterward, one woman came up crying. "My sister cut me out of her life 10 years ago," she said. "I've been waiting for an apology that might never come. But now I think I can stop waiting." I hugged her. "Forgiveness isn't waiting," I told her softly. "It's walking away with peace." That night, I walked along the riverbank. The moon hung low, glowing on the rippling surface. I thought of Emily, maybe somewhere looking at the same sky. We hadn't spoken since the hearing, but that was okay. Sometimes silence is a form of love too, the kind that lets each person grow separately. I picked up a smooth stone and whispered a quiet wish before tossing it into the water. It sank quickly, but the ripples spread wide, just like forgiveness does. Weeks turned into months. One Sunday, Mom called with news that made me sit down. "Emily got a job," she said, voice trembling with joy. "At a small flower shop downtown. She's doing well." A laugh escaped me, light, unguarded. Of course, she picked flowers. "She said she might reach out soon," Mom added gently. "I hope she does," I said. And I meant it. Life didn't go back to how it was before, it grew into something better, something real. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. I traveled. I learned to cook new recipes that didn't remind me of anyone else. And I finally understood, rebuilding isn't about replacing what's lost. It's about planting something new in the soil of what survived. I kept Emily's letter and drawing framed on my wall. Every time I looked at it, I felt a strange calm. The lines weren't perfect. One daisy was smaller, slightly bent, but together they formed something beautiful. Two lives intertwined by blood and brokenness. Two women learning how to bloom again. Healing doesn't come with fanfare. It arrives in small, quiet ways, like a morning when you wake up and realize you didn't dream about the pain. For a long time, I defined myself by what Emily took. My name, my job, my trust. But eventually, I started noticing what she couldn't take, my resilience, my voice, my ability to rebuild. That's when I stopped seeing myself as a victim. Therapy helped, but so did solitude. I began taking long walks at dawn, when the city was still half asleep. The streets were washed in pale light, and the air felt clean new. Sometimes I'd stop by a small bakery on my block, the owner greeting me with the same cheerful, "Good morning, Claire," every day. That small recognition meant more than anyone knew. It reminded me that I still existed, not as a story, or a headline, or someone's shadow, but as a person in the world. One morning, I saw her. I was buying coffee when a woman walked in, head down, hair shorter, wearing a faded yellow jacket. She didn't notice me at first. When she looked up, her eyes widened. "Emily." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of the coffee grinder filled the silence. Then she smiled nervously. Hey, I said quietly. She hesitated, then walked closer. "I didn't know you came here. I just moved nearby." "That's good," she said softly. "You look happy." "I am." She looked down at her hands. "I wanted to call. I just didn't know if I should." "You're here," I said. "That's enough." We stood there, two women who once shared everything, now learning how to share space again without fear. We ended up sitting outside, sipping our coffees in the cool morning air. The world moved gently around us, cars passing, birds calling, people laughing in the distance. "I got your letter," I said finally. "I meant every word," she whispered. "I've been trying to understand why I did what I did." "Did you find the answer?" She shook her head. "Not yet. But I stopped pretending that pain gives permission." That line stuck with me, pain gives permission. She was right. So many wrong things in the world start with someone's hurt being used as an excuse to cause more. "I know sorry doesn't fix it," she said. "It doesn't," I agreed. "But it helps." She looked at me then, really looked the way she used to when we were little, sharing secrets under the blankets. "I missed you," she said, her voice cracking. Something inside me softened. "I missed you too." We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat there, quiet, honest, human. After that day, we didn't become sisters overnight again. We texted occasionally, shared photos of Mom. She told me about her job at the flower shop, how she'd learned to make bouquets that matched people's moods. Sometimes, I'd stop by on weekends. She'd hand me a daisy, our old symbol, and say, "For your peace." It became our quiet ritual. No explanations. Just two souls exchanging small acts of healing. A year passed. On my 31st birthday, Mom insisted we celebrate together, the three of us. I almost said no, worried about awkward silences. But something told me to go. When I arrived, Emily was already there, setting the table. She smiled, shy, uncertain. "Happy birthday, Claire." "Happy birthday, Emily." We said it together, laughing at the unintentional harmony. Dinner was simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Mom's peach cobbler. Halfway through, Emily handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver locket with two tiny pressed daisies inside. On the back, she'd engraved one line: different paths, same roots. I looked up, eyes stinging. "It's beautiful." She smiled softly. "You taught me how to start over." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We both learned. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat by the window with the locket in my hand. The moonlight hit the glass, catching the delicate flowers inside. I thought of everything: the loss, the betrayal, the months of confusion, and realized something I hadn't before. Forgiveness isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one. In time, Emily's story spread quietly too. The same community that once judged began to see her differently. She volunteered at a shelter, taught art classes for women rebuilding their lives after trauma. Once, a woman from her class approached me at a cafe. "You're Claire, right?" she asked. "Emily talks about you all the time. She says you saved her." I smiled, shaking my head. "No," I said softly. "She saved herself." Months later, I received a small envelope in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Inside was a photograph of a garden full of daisies and lavender, sunlight spilling across the petals. On the back, it read, "For the first time, I feel like me." I placed it on my wall beside the drawing she gave me years ago. The two images, one sketched, one real, looked like the before and after of forgiveness. People often ask me how I found peace after what happened. The truth is, peace wasn't something I found. It was something I chose again and again until it became real. There were days I still felt the ache, moments I'd wake up expecting her voice in the next room. But then I'd look in the mirror and remind myself, she may have worn my reflection once, but only I know the woman behind it. Now, every morning, I touch the silver locket before leaving home, a quiet reminder that the past can't be rewritten, but it can be redeemed. Emily and I aren't perfect sisters. We still stumble, still have distance between us. But sometimes, when I see her smile, softer now, lighter, I know that we both survived something most people wouldn't understand. And survival, in its own way, is a form of grace. Healing doesn't erase what's broken. It teaches you how to live beautifully with the cracks. And for me, that's enough. Sometimes, when I look back, I realize that my story was never really about betrayal. It was about identity, the fragile, invisible thread that ties who we are to what others see in us. When Emily stole my name, she didn't just take my life. She forced me to find out who I truly was without it. And as strange as it sounds, I think I'm stronger for it. Because losing everything showed me what couldn't be taken. People often imagine forgiveness as a grand act, a single, powerful moment where the pain dissolves and everything feels new again. But that's not how it works. Forgiveness is quieter than that. It's choosing not to reopen a wound every time you remember how it hurt. It's seeing the person who broke you and realizing their mistake doesn't define your worth. It's learning that your healing belongs to you, not to the person who caused the pain. For me, forgiveness didn't start with saying, "I forgive you." It started with whispering, "I deserve peace." Emily and I still talk sometimes. Not every day, not even every week. But when we do, it feels calm. Like two people walking beside each other, finally at the same pace. She's still at the flower shop. Sometimes she sends me small bouquets, nothing fancy, just wildflowers wrapped in brown paper. And every time I see those daisies, I smile. Because now I don't see what was lost. I see what survived. I still wear the locket she gave me. Sometimes I touch it absent-mindedly during quiet moments, in traffic, in meetings, in the grocery line, and it reminds me that life doesn't give back what it takes. It gives you something different, something truer. And if you're brave enough to accept it, that different can become the most beautiful part of your story. For anyone listening tonight who's been betrayed by someone they loved, a sister, a friend, a partner, I want you to hear this. You can rebuild. You can start again. You can forgive without forgetting. And someday, when you least expect it, you'll realize the pain doesn't define you anymore, it shaped you. If I could speak to my younger self, the one standing in the rain watching her twins steal her life, I'd tell her this: you're going to lose things you never thought you'd survive. But you'll come back softer, wiser, stronger. You'll learn that forgiving doesn't mean excusing, and healing doesn't mean pretending. You'll learn that peace isn't found in getting answers, but in making room for yourself again. Now, when I look at my reflection, I don't see the sister who betrayed me. I see the woman who learned to live again. And I think, maybe that's the real ending. Not revenge. Not even reconciliation. Just quiet acceptance, the kind that comes after the storm, when the world finally feels still. So tonight, I'll leave you with this question. If someone took everything from you, your name, your trust, your sense of self, could you ever forgive them? And if you could, would you? Because sometimes, the hardest person to forgive isn't the one who hurt you. It's the one you used to be before it happened. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever walked through something like this, know that you're not alone. And if my story touched your heart tonight, stay a while and share yours in the comments. Until next time, take care of your peace.